All right, here we go, y'all. NBA. That was fucked up. All right. See, I like being able to roll the theme music instead of having to play it in later. All right, here we go. It's that NBA Life 1-1, episode 11. You see, James and we are remote, but it don't matter. We still gonna bring it to you. So yeah, episode 11, April 7th. It's right about noon here Saturday, and the playoffs are a week away in the NBA, man. And I really want to just jump into this Philadelphia Cleveland Cavalier game last night, man. It was there's basically playoff games this weekend because of the seeding. Did you, James, see any of that Cleveland Philly game?
Nah, man, I did watch some of the Sixers and some previous stuff, but I didn't just catch it. What had happened?
So they're actually the Cavs are battling Philadelphia for the 3-4 seed. So there was heavy playoff implications. Now, Joel Embiid out of the game. He's not going to return until some point in the first round with the fractured orbital. We've talked about that. The Cavs are chipped up as well. There was no George Hill, sprained ankle. Jose Calderon has a pulled hamstring. And then Rodney Hood only played like 12 minutes because Achilles soreness. That's always brow lifting, as if I ever have to lift my brow. But but so Hood only played 12 minutes, and Philly came out and just punched them in the fucking mouth, man. So they were up like 30 points at some point, and they came out. It was in Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia home court is real. I had heard other people in the media talking about, oh, Philly, you don't want to go there. And I have to admit that I know that there was the run with Iverson, and I think at that time I couldn't fully appreciate that. And then, but since then, before that, it was Barkley and Dr. J. So I haven't seen, we know the reputation of a Philadelphia sports team, but I haven't seen the Sixers lit. I haven't seen them really like that.
Well, I mean, just with Philly in general, whenever you can produce chicks like Eve and homies like Meek Mill, I think that says something about your area, because those are definitely some more grimy cats that you can mention. So yeah, that and even you remember that Philadelphia. I think he was a general manager whenever the Eagles won. He was saying all that crazy stuff to the crowd. So yeah, Philly, it goes down. It's definitely a hostile environment.
They're just doing things. They're kind of blowing up. But they came out and punched him in the mouth. They hit a bunch of threes. Redick, Bellinelli were coming off screens, and Cleveland was heavily depleted in the backcourt, like I had mentioned. No George Hill, no Calderon, who had been playing well for them, and then Hood. When Achilles soreness is like, ooh wee, right? But Hood's
Yes, it is.
always been chipped up. But the story, one I loved. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is just super fun to watch, man, and how he gets to the rim, because you gap him and then he's so big and he understands angles. So he just uses that space that you gap him with to accelerate, and then he's so big he just blows by you. But he had a dunk. He stared down LeBron, and he just has that Aussie swagger. And the thing that they didn't guard each other that much, and that was a little.
Uh-huh.
They had Covington on LeBron, and then LeBron was off Simmons, and they had Jeff Green on Simmons. And
Hmm.
that's just kind of today's NBA. That's just that very few of these guys go to. That's why people like to compliment Kawhi and Klay Thompson and some of these guys where they're Jimmy Butler. They're two-way players. They will guard the star, and LeBron will do it at times. But he played 40 minutes, and he ended up. So I guess I feel like people already know the outcome of the game. Philadelphia pulled it off. LeBron missed a free throw down the stretch. They came all the way back, down 30. LeBron hit 4 threes, man. And Jeff
Hmm.
Green had a monster game. They had Jeff Green playing the 4, Love at the 5. It hurts Love to play the 5. And they come all the way raging back. LeBron's on the free throw line, 3 free throws to tie the game with like 2 seconds left, and he clanks the second one.
Yeah, that brings up a very good point. Some people have talked about whenever LeBron's teams are down with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he is less clutch than you may remember him being. I think his stats were very disproportionate that when his team is 6 minutes down, he doesn't necessarily bring teams back as we may think. And granted, that's just one example of it. But I remember in the finals a few years back mixing some layups around the rim and all those different types of interactions.
He,
So yeah, I can see how that could happen.
he's not a shooter, but I mean, his stat line was 44, 11, and 10. So, I mean, a monster
Hmm.
triple double. But Ben Simmons
Hmm.
matched his ass with 27, 15, and 13. 15 rebounds,
Hmm.
13 assists. And
Mm-hmm.
Ben, man, like we talked a little bit about the swagger, but the fact that he gets 27 points and basically doesn't take a jump shot.
Man, okay. When you were talking about him, the way that they gap him from a standpoint of football, he reminds me of DeMarco Murray. So go with me here. When you mentioned that he uses that space to accelerate quickly and consistently performs. When you look back at DeMarco Murray when he had that standout season, he wasn't doing anything exceptional. You're like, DeMarco, he didn't spin, he didn't jump. He just simply found the creases and ran very quickly and upright and threw people off of him. So for some reason, DeMarco Murray and Ben Simmons, DeMarco in his prime, obviously not now, they have some similar characteristics. I like him, and I think it's similar to your game, Coach, from some of the mid-range fadeaways, some of the bounce passing. I like his demeanor. I think he's going to end up having a Tim Duncan type output, and I know that's a big assertion to make, but his fundamentals are very, very crispy. And I think that when it's all said and done, you know how you were saying they were anointing him, some of the old heads like Dr. J and other people. And I think he's going to have a Tim Duncan type swag. And a lot of people think Tim is boring and he did very good interviews and he was squeaky clean. But Ben kind of has some of that stilo and it's working for him.
I can see that. I think on the court, I think he has, I think he has a little more swagger, but I see what you're saying. And,
No. He's nothing like Tim, but I think his outcomes.
Right.
He's going to be one of those sleepers that people, because nobody expected Tim to do what he did, but he's up there with the greats. And I think that from a standpoint, Ben is going to have that level of success.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah, no, they're talking real. I mean, for Isaiah Thomas to say he's the closest thing to Magic Johnson he's ever seen, that's hype, because you know how the OGs are. They don't like to dish out the praise on the new generation. And he just, and you're right. I see, because I've heard people also say like, oh, because it's the complexion thing, and I want to make this about me. You know what I'm saying? But but what I share with him similarly is I'm relative to when I play pickup ball. I'm like the bigger, taller guy, but I play guard. But also, me, I've preached that demeanor of like I'm always in control. I ain't trying that hard.
Yes.
And so Tim Duncan has it. Ben Simmons has it, and that's kind of how I play when I play sports, obviously at the lowest levels. But I'm saying where it's kind of like, I'm not really trying that hard, but yet I'm trying hard.
Yeah. And I like the fact that he has great self-awareness. There was an opportunity where his teammate was closing out and he allowed the person to score, which most people would think, oh, why would you do that? But probably seeing Oladipo go down with that facial fracture by his own player knocking him in the corner of the head, he kind of was like, oh, man, 2 points is not worth me barreling into somebody and something happening. And it was just showing his athleticism, his ability to still play defense, see his own player, and move around them, because friendly fire from a war standpoint is the last thing that you want. When you injure your own team, that's very demoralizing. You kind of expect it from the other squad, but whenever a teammate injures another teammate, you get that Vince Carter look whenever he kind of undercut that dude.
Man, that was scary. No,
how's he doing?
Patrick McCall. So it was a spinal contusion, and he's all right. He will be reevaluated in like 3 or 4 weeks. So he's not. We may not see him again this season, but he's going to recover 100, man. And that was one of the more dramatic scenes I've seen on a basketball court. But back to Ben Simmons, it's because usually an athlete of that caliber and that young, you're right, they're so reliant on their athleticism. They don't pick and choose when to use it at that age. When you have an elite athlete and they're young like that, they're so overzealous to show and use their athleticism, and he's modest with the turbo button, right? He uses it at the right time. That's impressive.
Perfect. I'm glad that you just said the word timing, because I think that's very important. Remember back to the Legion of Boom and also Miami when they had the big three, and they would basically turn it on in the third quarter and the fourth quarter with like a 17-point run. They'd be getting their tails kicked for the first 2 quarters. Or you think of the Patriots and their comeback kid mentality. And it makes a lot of sense to be able to time your punches. McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, or the rope-a-dope, Frazier goes down. There is something to be said to withstanding, maybe playing coy, sandbagging, being a shark, and then suddenly turning it on at the right time. You remember that one episode where It was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Will had gone down to that pool hall, and Uncle Phil had to save his butt
He got
because
sharked.
he got sharked. So I just think I know that's a part of your game as well. You kind of, especially when we hit up the video games, you'll be like, "Oh, you scored a couple times," and all of a sudden you'll put up 30 real quick in Madden, just so people will continue to want to play with you.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny. So there is something to be said about being calculated in your timing and using your punches or your shots or your whatever it may be effectively. Because the Seahawks, back once they were winning, you look at that season, they didn't win by much. They were kind of like the Patriots. They win by like 10 points, 7 points. They just did it right at the right time. You knew Russell Wilson was going to do something crazy.
Well, and in football too, like it's not necessarily the size of the guy that's hitting you, it's the timing. There's been safeties in particular, right, where it was kind of like I mean, obviously size matters and weight, but if you time the hit, that's when it is. Or even on the basketball court, a crossover, a move, it's not necessarily. And I think I think it boils down to a confidence in your skill level, because when you're confident, when there's a level of confidence, you don't feel like you have to show it right away. You're like, you know what I mean? You know that it will unfold and it will be seen. Where
that's interesting.
A younger player, they're kind of overzealous. Like, look, I could do this and I could do that. And so I think that may be it. But I do have a thought on ultimately this Cleveland. And, there's been the talk of LeBron could go to Philadelphia. And I've already said that doesn't – Ben and him are the same player, essentially. Someone's going to – there'll be diminishing returns. But – I think that if I'm LeBron James, round 1, game 1 of these playoffs, I introduce the final stage of LeBron James, and that's bald Bron. and like, and he just take a fucking Bic razor to that shit and just take it all off. And I know this has been documented and talked about, but I was just watching him, and it's just a subject matter. But he's really rocking like the side waves now. Like he brushes like at a 45-degree angle right at the like where it's thick, and so it accentuates the balding. He's got the whole Costanza. The whole Costanza going. And the beard is fucking glorious. The beard is like a thick forest. but I don't know where that came from. But I'm just.
But the top is like a shallow pond.
Dude, yeah. And I'm just saying, introduce bald Bron. People are you already have Dario Saric. You already have several players that, I don't know, I guess it's the European thing that they're not afraid to just be brutally honest. But you had Dario Saric and you had the kid Sotiropoulos or something like that. I can't pronounce his name in Washington. They asked him, they're like, we don't want to play LeBron in the playoffs. We don't we don't want to play him. But anyway, he already intimidates the fuck out of half the league, right? He shows up with the fresh baldy and the big beard. You know what I'm saying? That's the final stage, the final evolution of LeBron now. He's mid-30s. Just take that shit off. You'll be even scarier looking. And I think he needs to do that, man. That's what I propose.
Yeah, because you remember when Jordan, when the sweat would just be beating down the head and the gum was popping and the tongue was out. So you're right. That's a very intimidated look. The tall, dark-skinned cat with the beard and baldy. I think Bernard Hopkins had a similar look at a certain point, and he looked even crazier. But it's great that you touched on career development. And when you look at video games, you go basically, you'd need to be a varsity athlete, then you would move to being a prospect, then you'd be a champion, then you would be a rookie, then a starter, then you'd move into possibly being a veteran. If you have high skill, you'll move from veteran into all-star status. After all-star status, you can become an elite. And then after being an elite, you can be a legend. So there's tons of different stages of a person's career. And when you look at career development psychology, they kind of juxtapositioned it into these 8 different categories. People pick their jobs in accordance to being relativistic, creative, and all intrinsically motivated. So it's just kind of interesting. As he's aged and grown, he has developed through all those different stages, and your look can kind of go along with it. I have another thing about somebody's hair. John Wall, he's getting those braids of like D Rose. And I mean, remember what happened to D Rose? Back, he used to look clean. Like D Rose was a decent looking cat, but now I think as his knee got broke, his hairstyle got broke, and as his hairstyle got broke, his game got broke. So I'm just encouraging John Wall to maybe think about if he needs the short twists, because if they look anything like D Rose's, that would not be the
he's like in his second childhood is what he's entering.
Yes,
he needs a binky. I could see him with like a
Yeah.
binky. Remember, like in Don't Be a Menace? Like John Wall seems like he might
Yeah.
just rock like a gold-plated binky. but and we're speaking of just looks, and I hate to do it. I've mentioned it before, but
Nah, nah.
who was courtside
Mhm.
at that Philly game was none other than Allen Iverson. And
Yes.
I mean, he looks like he smells like the carpet at a strip club. Like
that plastic and
dude,
booty
like
smell.
he's like he reminds me of like the homie that was like the man in high school, right? He was the
Yes.
dude, and then it's just like, damn, what happened, homie? And he's still
Yeah.
rocking the like extra long tees and the like too thick
The
chain.
headband.
Dude,
Yeah.
AI, bro, someone needs to come get Scoop the boy. Like I don't know, man. Hey man, as long as he's not doing what it looks like he's doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, who am I to judge? But I just don't like seeing him in that state. He hasn't aged well, man. But so I guess that game was interesting. The playoff picture, we'll dive into that a little bit later. But I did want to, we jump around in this podcast with just life, culture, and all these things. And I was watching. I get one of those IPTVs. I'm not even gonna front. I have all the packages because it's like I consume media. It's my job at this point, whether it's sports or whatever it is. And I'm watching a movie, and it got me to thinking, man, like, why do I not like any movies? Like, I really can barely sit through any movie, and I just don't enjoy them like I used to. And I'm thinking they're just trash now. But then I kind of thought about it deeper, and I was like, what's the real root of it is I kind of want to get to my phone. I kind of want to get on social media, and I want to see, who dunked on who's talking shit with this, and some IG thought. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that because of social media and because of our smartphones, I think that it's hard, at least for me, it's much harder for me to enjoy a movie or have the attention span to watch a movie. Even if it's good, I'm wanting it to end so I can get back to social media.
Yeah, I did some research into that, and there's some new terms that have been coined as a function of social media. You think about it, like, unlike, follower, Twitter, page. You have all these different new words that are being used, and they did some research to your average high schooler, and they found that most kids feel that spending time online with their friends helps them to know them better and to sympathize with them during challenging times. A specific quote from one of the kids was, well, yeah, I like going online to see who they were with and check up on them and see who they hooked up with. So you've got things as low level as that, all the way up to, yes, you could get peer support online, and social media could be a place where you can hang out with people. But that's different than our generation. Like you and I, if we want to talk, I'll hit you up. If you don't answer, I'm not about to text you a whole time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just kind of interesting how those things have changed. And, I'm a fan of social media. I don't use it too much myself, but there is a value and a benefit to it. But with the research that they're doing, they are showing that people are definitely contingent and stuck on their phones for relationships. You have more online dating, you have forums, you have group me's. So even these new terms that we've introduced in the past 10 years are saying a lot about our social development. And that it's definitely quite interesting. What makes a friend or what takes you to that position has changed.
Yeah, that's right. Like because we were talking about this, like the younger generation, everybody's their friend. Everybody's their friend, right? And it's like because the actual definition has changed. You and I joke like I got like 5 friends, maybe.
Oh yeah. And I was blessed to get you as a friend at work, and even still, Harris and some other cats, I would consider as friends, but we don't really kick it like that. But yeah, most of the people, you met them in younger years, and you've had time to have experience with them. You could meet someone at work, but y'all probably aren't going to do much beside. Like we had an interesting situation. We coached together. We worked at the same spot. We were under the same ridiculous leadership, so we had commonalities, but
Right.
at most part it's you and your girl, if you're married, going over to her friends for 2-3 hours and coming back home. Like, I'm not interested in making any new
Yeah,
friends,
the adult.
to be quite honest.
It's much harder as an adult to make friends, right? But I
Yes.
think I know I'm on the extreme other end of the spectrum. And like when I say that, and shout out all my people back in Cali that are listening to me that I grew up with, like they're my olds, you know what I'm saying? But it's like as far as friends that you meet as an adult, you have the childhood people that you grew up with and you'll always be brothers with, but it's a different time. You grow up, you have families, you don't see them no more. But
Yeah.
like I'm the extreme.
But generally, once you call them up, it's right where you left back off. There's no time
Right.
missed. That indicates a good friendship. If you have to hit somebody up and there's a lot of catching up to do, then maybe the relationship wasn't as strong as you may have thought. Because you're right, we all have those high school homies and people we kicked it with. But if you spend enough time with them and know them that well, they probably haven't changed that much. Circumstances might have.
No, I agree. But I guess like for me, I probably am lacking in the ability to be like, hey, like, you know, meet new people and new friends. So I think that it is, like, you're right. It is a positive in a way that today's youth is they know how to network and everybody's more friendly. But at the same time,
you don't believe that. Don't lie to yourself. You don't believe that.
I think that I do. I think that there's like a part of it that is because I know that I'm like, man, don't say shit to me. Like I don't want to socialize.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when you like get a new job and someone's like, hey man, you want to come out for drinks or do that? You know, and I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I got shit to do. Like I'm very, you know, I isolate myself. And I know that sometimes I need better balance with it for me personally. Like I'm on like I said, the one end of the spectrum. And so I do think it is cool. And I think that there are kids that without social media and without that would be extremely lonely, but maybe it is handicapping them like in their face-to-face day-to-day. They wouldn't, it's not forcing them to go out and make physical friends, if that makes sense. But but at the same time, what I'm saying on the other end of the spectrum is you hear like so many of these kids that I've worked with where they're like, yeah, man, someone got me for my iPhone. Or I remember like someone stole my Xbox One. And I'm like, oh, word. Like, and 9 out of 10 times the story was, yeah, my boy stole it. My friend stole it. And I'm like, oh, word. So they're your friend though. They're your boy. And
they just robbed you clean.
Right. And so, like I said, there's two ends of the spectrum. For me, that'll never happen because like it takes a long time to earn my trust in my friendship. But then, like on that end, like they can be too loosey goosey with it, and you're seeing like you're like, oh, so they aren't really your friend, are they? They just jacked you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Two quick things to take it way back. Aristotle actually says that friendship is moderation. So examine your relationships, and the people that you spend the most time with are able to indoctrinate good virtue, and good virtue is a function of moderation. Most of us feel that if something's pleasurable, you should get the most of it. But even Aristotle many years ago stated that moderation is the sign of well-balanced in character. And he considers that virtue is marked by excess and deficiency. So he goes on further to say that having virtue means to control your desires. And if you do that, that gives a huge social outcome that's very pro-social and positive. So he says to have friendship, one must have justice, and to have justice, one needs understanding of moral virtues. Benefits to the friend and society are all associated with noble friendship. So he even gets into it exactly to what you say, Coach, is that the significance of his philosophy allows us to observe his fellow man to interpret which person is a true friend rather than one motivated by utility or pleasure. So when you think of the young man who got robbed for his phone or his kicks, that was someone who was just around him for utility or pleasure, something they can gain. But a true friend has no real desire to get something from you. So a lot of you men out there who don't live off of women, you don't need your girl to pay your bills, you're fine doing your own thing and she's just in your life, you'll understand this. Or women who you take care of your kids every day and you don't need a lot of recognition and you're not using it as a position in your house, you are giving something and you're confident with yourself. Friendships have to be based on good moral virtue. And even if you think about recreational, you know, if you have a homie who you know he has a drug problem or he needs to clean up his life, a true friend is going to be like, nah, man, don't invite this fool to the bar. But once we're younger, we're like, yeah, this fool has cheese. And if we take him out, he's going to buy all the shit. You know what I'm saying? So friendship is a function of moderation and not just wanting utility and pleasure, at least according to philosophy.
Right. And I like that, man. I like that. And like I said, I think I get too harsh with that at times. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to touch on real quick is the Raptors versus the Celtics. I really appreciate what they're doing out there with culture and diversity. I think that their general manager has done a great job of using diversity and inclusion. They've got people from Lithuania, Estonia, England, Austria, Cameroon, and Congo. And we were talking about Nogueira. You got to see the pictures of him and his girl. It's kind of crazy. And they also got Ibaka on the squad, too. So I think that they're the longest team in the league. I'll put some footage out there for y'all to see. Y'all know that infamous infamous pick
Well,
where Ibaka is out there with the slim gear. So yeah, y'all get a chance to see
how are
it.
you
And then
putting this shit on YouTube?
and
You
then
wildin'.
Van Vliet is kind of crazy, man. Have you noticed that prefix Van? People with Van in front of their name tend to do great things. You've got like Van Morrison, Van Halen, Van Heusen, Van Cliburn. So I think Van, if you want your kids to be champions, go ahead and put Van in front of their name, or even Ludwig van Beethoven.
What was-
it's just kind of
Well,
crazy.
I think he's like out of Wichita State or something like that.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
I have a little bit of. So I know Cleveland went in and thumped Toronto like twice in the last like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And everybody's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's the same old, what do they call them? The baby dinosaurs or whatever they calling them on social media. And Cleveland all of a sudden, and we were fooled. Cleveland is really the power again. And I would kind of counter that. I think we're being fooled right now. I think that I think that Cleveland is kind of pushing and trying to prove at the wrong time of the season. And this is very subjective, but I don't think that that's quite what it is. You look at LeBron playing 40 minutes last night, having to hang 44, 11, and 10, and still losing, and they're chipped up.
Damn.
I just don't think it's exactly what it is. I know they've won a bunch of late, but I think that I'm still picking Toronto to come out. I'm still picking Toronto to come out, and Fred Van Vliet is one of those reasons, man. Is one of those reasons. I think that Toronto wasn't used to being in that position of being the hunted kind of, and who knows how they'll react. But I think people are. I think it looks a little false. The narrative that Cleveland is still is clearly the team to beat, and they're going to just cruise through the East. It's not happening. It's not happening, man. I'm sticking to that.
Well, on the Cavs, before we move on, you remember Horace Grant and B.J. Armstrong back in those days? Remember how B.J. Armstrong was a phenom because he could shoot threes? Just kind of I was reflecting back to that. Now everybody can shoot threes, but everybody loved B.J. Armstrong because he won that three-point competition. In that 1 or 2 years, he really stepped up. I think his nickname was the Kid, and he only had like 10 or 11 points on average per game. But back to the throwbacks, just to see how much the game has changed, that we used to praise people like B.J. Armstrong, Paxton, and all these shooters. But now everybody can. Everybody's doing that now.
Right. Well, I mean, the numbers, and even you can go to football too, or baseball. There's had different areas with the juice and all that. But the three ball and the stats, the pace. So the stats are skewed. You can't compare eras. But I don't want to dive too deep in this. But I just want to bring up that the specialists in the 90s, as particularly the shooters, the guards. Right, Jordan absolutely feasted on them, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, especially people our age. But Jordan feasted on the Craig Elos of the world four times a season, 6 times in the playoffs, or it could be however. But now that the specialty player is gone and versatility rules. So yes, the three ball and the pace of the game has inflated the numbers, but you're also dealing with superior athletes at every position. There's no nights to pick on specialty players. But yeah, before we go into let's see here, the Eastern Conference, I'm trying to project here the Western Conference, how it's going to play off with the playoffs. The East, it looks like you're going to get Indiana and Cleveland first round. Now the Indiana Pacers just thumped the Warriors, and the Warriors,
yes, they did.
Yeah, the Warriors. I don't hold that much to that game. It was pretty ugly, but I was impressed with Indiana. I was impressed with how physical they are, how versatile they are, and Nate McMillan's done a really good job. Cleveland, mark it down right now. Your boy Alchemy, if y'all been paying attention, man, and everybody misses and hits, but what I say usually is pretty on point. Cleveland is not coming out of the East. They're not coming out of the East. Indiana's going to push them if that's how it falls. Philadelphia may just beat them. I'm just telling you, that's how it's going to be. But there's a lot of intriguing matchups. It may not be the Pacers. It may be Washington first round. Everything has to play out. Let me jump to the Western Conference. The playoffs start right now, today. The playoffs start, I got news for you, a week early in the Western Conference. Because 4 through 8 is separated by 1 game with like 2 or 3 games to play. And so it looks like you've got Houston number 1, right? Golden State number 2 locked in, and Portland is pretty secure at that 3rd spot. And then everything else is up in the air. And right now, as we stand, the Jazz, it looks like they're going to get the 4 seed. They've been the hottest team in the NBA, and everybody wants to avoid the Jazz. But you've got, so Minnesota, I think, jumped back into the 8th seed. Denver's in the 9th seed. And then you've got New Orleans, the Thunder, and the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to point one thing out here, that I was looking at the series, the tiebreakers and all this. I think Utah finishes 4th. They'll probably win out. Now, the one thing that you got to pay attention to is if OKC finishes 5th, that's the one matchup Utah doesn't want. OKC won the season series 3-1. For whatever reason, they're athletes. Westbrook, Donovan Mitchell, that's a fun matchup. For whatever reason, styles make fights. OKC kind of owned Utah, and maybe they had a bunch of players out, and the context of that has skewed that. But that 4-5 OKC matchup would be interesting. It looks like the Nuggets are not going to make it. Again, I don't know when we put this out, and there may be another win or loss that skews this. But the Nuggets, their schedule is the Clippers, Portland, and Minnesota. So they may not win any of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking at the Spurs, Minnesota, or the Pelicans for the Warriors. And I know I don't know that, like, listening to this, that probably doesn't translate. It sounds confusing, but you've got all these teams with 3 games left. San Antonio has Portland, Sacramento, and the Pelicans. Minnesota's got the easiest path. They just have Memphis and Denver left. They've already played. They only have 2 games left. The Thunder, they have the Rockets, the Heat, and then the Grizzlies. So one give me game. But how this plays out, like I said, the playoffs kind of start right now, man. And so that's exciting. And you know, Warrior fans, who do y'all want? I ask you, we've got about a week here. I did on my Patreon, I did a breakdown of the Denver and Minnesota. And I concluded that I'd rather play Minnesota than Denver. And Denver, they may not get in, but Denver, they just propose a lot more problems.
Yes.
But yeah, so I just want to point that out headed into this weekend. What else we got? I don't know. We can jump around here a little bit. One thing I want to, you know me, I like my predictions. One thing I want to point out is with the NFL draft coming up. I don't know how much you've been paying attention to it, but this kid Josh Allen, all of a sudden has climbed to what may be the number 1 pick quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the Carson Wentz effect. We know he has ties. I'm calling it right now. Whoever takes that kid, it's just because of Carson Wentz, and they're going to get shitted on. I don't like that he's. I don't like him climbing that quick right now. It just seems spooky to me. I wouldn't touch it if he goes top 3. I think someone, probably Cleveland. Cleveland will probably shit themselves with the pick, right?
They like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of funny. You were saying that just because this other cat who looks similar to him, kind of same body style, similar background in relationship to the way that they played in college, it's almost like the Tesla effect as well. Tesla currently is not doing very well because people had this big projection that everyone's going to want these cars, and it probably will rebound, and they may recoup their money here down the line. So everyone was thinking, oh, Tesla, I can get one for either 32 or I can get one for 250. But the charging station by itself is very expensive. So this is kind of to your point that whenever something new and flashy comes out, you think everybody's going to want it and it's going to be very productive. But after you go 2-3 years with it, you might realize that the supply and the demand are not the same as what you thought. And at first we wanted the Ben Roethlisberger, we wanted the Cam Newton. Now we want the slimmer guy who can keep his arm in the pocket, not throw with his elbow out. So the criteria for what they're looking for is contingent on who just won. And since he just won, people are like, oh, I want that.
Right. And I mean, look at the Rams. The Rams are copycatting the Eagles in just signing a bunch of talent. They're like overloading on talent and going all in. And it happens in the NBA even worse. The one that I'll point out, the Warriors have had to play the Suns. They play them again Sunday. They've played them like 3 times this month, and I'm sick of seeing this trash team. If I wanted to go see him, I'd go take the light rail down to see him. But shit.
And you did that once.
But so Bender, what's his first name? Dragan Bender, and he wears number 35 and to homage to Kevin Durant, and that is one of the most blasphemous things. KD should tell him to take that number off. They shouldn't let him wear 35, but that's another story. But the Suns drafted him, I believe, like top 5, and it was the year after Porzingis. And so it was the Porzingis effect, right? Porzingis, because I remember at Porzingis in the draft, everybody was killing the Knicks like, oh, this kid looks real skinny. I remember one of the draft analysts was like, I don't like his eyes. one of those East Coast guys. He was like, you look him in the eyes, he's got dead eyes. But anyway, they were wrong, and right, Porzingis obviously blew up on the scene, and then the next year the Suns are like, oh, this Bender kid, and he has the same physical profile, and I think that's what's happening with Josh Allen and Wentz, and I think it's going to backfire.
And speaking of the Suns, don't you think the Morris twins are much happier not being here in Phoenix? It seems like they're really performing a lot better in their more current situations, and they're twins, so and they really back each other up on tons of different levels. So I'm just glad they got to move on, even though they had stinky attitudes. I put them on par with the Cousins type look and the disgruntled post worker or whatever. That they're equally as disgruntled. I think
everybody does better off the Suns. First and foremost. No, the Suns are celebrated. They had 4 Hall of Famers go in this round here. That former Suns, Kidd, Nash, I forget the rest, but they have a good history. But like of late,
did Kevin Johnson ever make it?
I don't know.
No,
I don't know. That's a fringe player right there. I know he's the mayor of Sacramento, but
all right then.
But I think that, and you can probably speak on this, I think separating them makes them better as well. The Suns, they did it backwards. Everybody knows the backstory of they gave, I think it was Markieff, gave them a discount contract to keep his brother with him, and then they traded his brother like a month later. That's what really disgruntled them. But I think that twins kind of lean on each other. Sometimes they can empower each other, but I think because of their personalities and they're kind of goony, I think that it was best to separate them.
Yeah, they're real goony. Don't get it twisted. Yeah, and I think that's definitely the lifestyle that they're rocking with. But I liked a lot of your predictions. I got some ideas for you. Do you think that Cafaro looks like Chumley the Walrus? or maybe Batista looks like Mickey Mouse?
Oh man, I think I definitely like that last one as far as not even the look, but how the cartoon, especially the old ones, very like, would you take this?
Yeah. It's funny, man. Well, tell me, I wanted to question you too. Jaylen Brown and Greg Monroe, I liked their most recent response after the game. They said the offense was moving through us. Guys were hurt. We had to step up. I believe Jaylen Brown had one of his career highs. He had 32 points, and Greg Monroe had 19 points, 11 boards, and 10 assists. And I just like that type of response because whenever I watched your last video, or one of the last ones, and you left that commentary of Kerr speaking, Livingston speaking, and KD speaking, that was not the sentiment that was shared. And I know that was a garbage game or whatever, but it wasn't people are hurt, we need to step up. It was more so, I kind of heard Livingston say like, yeah, we really need Steph back, which is true, but I didn't hear that sentiment of guys are hurt, next man up, let's make it rock. And granted, those were some small clips, but I have some respect for the Celtics, Jaylen and Greg Monroe, that they, even though it was just against the Bulls and they're not going nowhere, that type of mentality and that winning spirit is what you need. And I think that needs to rub off on the Warriors at this time. And that's maybe why Kerr had to take some of the stance that he was taking with them, because he is a seasoned vet and he's seen it. He's like, guys, this type of behavior is just not going to cut it. Like you tell your kids, yeah, you could screw off in high school, but I promise you, once you get to college by sophomore year, those C's are going to turn to D's, and that's just off top. It happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Kerr, I think leans a little bit to maybe too much towards the player's coach, but I don't see what's said behind closed doors. I might be wrong on that. I thought Livingston soundbite was decent. I thought he kind of said it was on them. He was, the easy answer is, we're tired and we're waiting for the playoffs. But, at some point they got to hold themselves accountable. I obviously, you heard what I said. I didn't like KD. KD's just troubling me, man, with just his attitude. You want another alchemy prediction so it's Saturday, April 7th, 12:30 p.m. They play the Pelicans at 5:30 tonight. They are going to get in that ass. Pause.
Yeah.
They are going to get in that ass. They will respond. They will respond. Now the Pelicans are fighting for their playoff lives. So I'm not saying that they'll blow them out. I think there'll be some fight. But you're going to see a crispy Warriors team on this Saturday evening because, one, just to respond, it wasn't embarrassing. You had Oladipo skying from the free throw line. You had Bogdanovic hit 6 threes. Bogdanovic looks like a fucking caveman. But you see, I get emotional when I start thinking about these things. But So they're going to respond tonight against the Pelicans, one, just because of the embarrassment, but two, they potentially could be facing them next Saturday. This round one, game one could be Saturday against this very opponent. So they need to set a tone like, nah, man, it ain't happening. But back to Boston, I really like Jaylen Brown, the Cal product. He's kind of a unique player. And I knew right away, I was breaking down that Minnesota game. He's like the anti-Andrew Wiggins, and they kind of have similar attributes.
Yes, they do.
But
they do.
Wiggins,
even the same. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Wiggins doesn't have it. And when you say, and Jaylen Brown has it.
When I hear Jaylen talk and respond, he seems a bit more capable of it. That's not fair to say, but he might have a higher intellect.
Definitely.
I can't make that statement.
No, yeah,
but
you can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah,
I can look at Wiggins' eyes and tell you that.
Yeah. I think Jaylen knows a few more things about life and reading and math. I'm just saying, like, just in general, and that helps him to hone and harness all of his skills.
Right, and then he's fearless. But yeah, I watched him. It was, I believe it was this last summer league where he kind of burst on the scene, and I was like, oh, okay. And so he has it now. I mean, I'm saying he's a superstar player, but he's a guy. He will be. You pair him, Tatum, and then we'll talk about Kyrie here in a second. But he has it where Wiggins, he doesn't have that. And those of you listening, you're like, well, what do you mean he has it? You know what I'm saying? That when you see a player, and you're like, oh, like he kind of pops off the screen, and he kind of has a little extra swagger to him. Ben Simmons has it. Donovan Mitchell has it, right? And of course, that's what the stars have. And
Oladipo's starting to get that look too. He's got kind of a glow around him.
Exactly. It's very rare to see someone get it at that point. I think he may get it from somewhere in Miami.
You know that comedian Michael Blackston?
Yeah.
You ever seen him, the African cat? Yeah, I could see him and Oladipo chilling and having.
Oh, motherfucker! And he went at Kevin Hart real salty and shit. But his the one thing about Blackiston was, I guess his accent is fake. That's kind of whack. Dude.
Wait a minute, come on, Quinn.
Dude, they busted him out. He's lived in Philly for 20 years.
He's not even African.
No, he's African, but like behind closed doors, he's like, "Hey, what's happening, nigga?" He's like, "What's good with you, nigga?" And then he gets on.
So before his acts, he has to really get.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Oh, fuck.
Serge Ibaka."
Yeah, man. Yeah, he looks at photos of Serge to feel like he's back in the motherland.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so Wiggins just doesn't have the it factor. He doesn't have the swagger, and you watched him kind of get iced out of the offense late in that game in Denver the other night. And he has all the physical gifts in the world, but it's just how Harrison Barnes is the same way. Harrison Barnes is like Wiggins; he doesn't have it. But
yeah, and I remember you always shut me down because I was a huge Barnes fan for a while, and you're like, "Nah, man, he's good, but we got to get rid of him." And you were kind of right. And back to OKC real quick. If they don't stop putting up some air balls, I know it was just one game, but the thing that's similar to Russ and Carmelo and George is at the end of that one game, they all just threw up some horrible looking shots. Granted that the pressure was on, but I pray they don't continue that in the playoffs because that's not going to be the look right there.
Wouldn't it be? That would be I want OKC in. Because they're interesting to watch, but that would be a hell of a storyline if somehow they fell out and they were at the 9th seed.
They hate it. No, they're not going to win. Cowherd was saying it the other day that George is highly unhappy. Think about it. Indiana sucks. George should be back in Cali, looking clean, riding in Lolo, saying what's up. And he's in freaking Indiana at Applebee's.
Or Oklahoma. But Oklahoma, Indiana, same shit.
I apologize. Yeah, I apologize.
But you know what's so funny is y'all heard it here first, man. Come to this pod, man. I fuck it. I'm tooting my own horn because it is what it is. It's real. I have it documented. When I told y'all Kawhi will be the consolation prize in LA, and you could pair him with PG or one of these. And then all these major networks this week, Fox Sports, Colin Cowherd, these guys, they started saying, what if Kawhi? The teams are getting ready to prepare packages for Kawhi. The Lakers will get Kawhi. I said this shit like 2 weeks ago. But But yeah, OKC, one thing I want to point out, we looks, what signals me to let me know that Paul George is leaving for is the hairline god. Paul George had the greatest hairline in the NBA, and he's let the shit go. He's let the shit go.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying about Wall, the haircuts. My boss pulled me in, and he was old school. He's this old cat. He's real smooth. He real cool dude. And he was like, James, You are getting older. You're now in a professional setting. I'm about to put you as a manager in front of tons of people. You're about to cut that hair. And this man isn't my dad, but I kind of had to realize at a certain point, and even my pops would tell me, I used to have dreads and all this and that. And I'm not knocking it. I can understand it. But when you're saying Wall's having a second childhood, at a certain point, you need to just you're an older dude. You need to kind of like I know George is younger than us, but your performance sometimes is epitomized in the way that you dress. You dress for success. So if you're no longer getting lineups,
exactly,
and you no longer care,
because and I'll put it up if we get visual of this one, like he had, I'm talking about a ruler across that forehead. That shit was the hairline god, Paul George, and I'm looking at him in that OKC Warriors game, and I'm like, his shit is mad scruffy, dude. Like he ain't got a line in like 3 weeks, maybe. He probably ain't even getting a line. Yeah. And that signaled me like, oh, he wants out. He wants out. He ain't even found a barber in OKC yet. And he's talking about it ain't about I'm happy here. And then watching Russ just shard away from the 3-point line. Yeah, it's going to be entertaining.
His shot selection is down. This is one of the worst years he's had shooting. His point production efficiency has been relatively low. And that's what people were saying, that it kind of is a testament to the fact that although Russ is very athletic, one-on-one, in relationship to a team, you got to pick and choose what you want to be with. I don't blame Harden. I don't blame Durant. Maybe they saw something on a day-to-day that we just don't see.
No, we've talked about it. He doesn't get the ball to anybody in rhythm. And back to remember my point of it, there's an underlining confidence with a Ben Simmons or a Donovan Mitchell and they're well beyond their age, where they don't have to show it all right away. They know that eventually their skills and their talent will show through in the game if they just let the game, if they play the game the right way. Russ is like the opposite, right? I'm going to show you right now how good I am.
Every single time. Yep. Where you're always on guard. Definitely. Speaking of Harden and the Rockets, I tend to think that Ariza is kind of the pulse of the team. I think that if he were to leave, that would change the dynamic down there. I also think that he picks up the most chicks at the club, and he's the one that probably organizes the fun activities at the club. I've got some pictures to show y'all. But I think that James and some of the other dudes probably wait around for him to pull him and set it up, and then they feed off of the excess.
I heard James has like his own entryway to like the strip clubs in Houston. I think they have like a
Man, Houston's like kind of like Atlanta, and there's a lot of beautiful black women, Hispanic women. There's a lot of great looking people just in general, white chicks. So Houston is definitely, if you're gonna go somewhere, me being from Dallas, I hate to speak highly of Houston. It's like something you can't do. You being from Cali, what are the spots that y'all used to hate on, or was there any beef? Because we didn't like Houston. We had no problem with San Antonio because San Antonio was just boring.
No, the Bay is love. Everybody, I mean, there wasn't, I went into that gangbanging or none of that stuff. And it wasn't really, in the Bay, not so much. It's more of a Southern California thing. So, and you have the NorCal and the SoCal as far as like, if you want to talk about like sports and I'm kind of comparing to Dallas and Houston like that. But no, it wasn't. It's all love. I mean, money dictates that if the community of, how do I say this? Fuck it. This is unedited, uncut, but there's drug territories, right? But I wasn't into that. I wasn't in that lifestyle, but it wasn't about like sets or gangs or nothing like that, or representing or hating on areas. It was SoCal, NorCal, as far as sports rivalries or stuff like that. But the Bay, it was, pretty united in that sense. At least when I was
it's very diverse.
Yeah.
It's very diverse.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, man. So, shout out to Jaylen Brown and Greg Monroe. Glad that they're getting an opportunity out there on the Celtics to perform well. Want to see them have some continued success. You were talking a little bit about Kyrie. What were you saying about him?
So they announced that he's out for the season. They have to have – so he had a knee surgery. Remember I brought up a non-invasive.
Laparoscopic.
Non-invasive. And I was like, what does that mean? Okay, you mean you're still digging into his damn knee. And so sure enough, they announced, 48 hours ago or so that he's out for the season. They needed second knee surgery. And I believe that he had bolts or screws in his knee from the 15 knee injury that are infected and they need to be removed.
What? Okay.
And so this is serious business, man. He is, and I am a subscriber of this theory where Colin Cowherd brought this up about when the fact of playing with LeBron, he was healthiest because he didn't have to shoulder the load. The usage, the volume There's something to be said about that. And that is exactly why Steph wanted KD to come. You say Steph's so generous and they're egoless stars in Golden State, right? No, but they understand it benefits. It's going to prolong Steph Curry's prime in his career. Because the weight of, and obviously he's chipped up now, but I'm saying that they don't have to shoulder so much. And so I do believe there is something to the fact of Kyrie going to Boston and have to shouldering so much of the load with the young players that it's just more strenuous on his body. But I will also say that Kyrie's playing style does not lend itself to longevity. He's so, and you don't think of him as like a dunker, above the rim player, leaping, but his irky jerky lateral movements
moves a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot on the
kind of like D Rose, although he was much more violent with his movement. But all that movement, you're kind of right. You were telling me about that one shooter. He said, well, how have you played 15, 16 years? He's like, I don't jump. I use set shots. Whenever I see feet around me, I move around them. I try not to move off the ground.
Andre Miller, right? I think Andre Miller has, and I hate that rat-faced bastard. He was always on teams that would like knock the Warriors out of playoff contention, but you had to respect his game. And I believe he has the consecutive streak, the Cal Ripken streak in the NBA, consecutive games played. Wow. And yeah, exactly what you said. When they asked him to see, he said, I don't jump, man. I don't jump. He used to get you on his hip, strong, booty bump you. He always gave you 9-10 assists a game, and then he had that little mid-range jump shot.
Andre Miller. Yeah, man. And speaking on injuries, remember once AP came back that one freak year and his knee actually got stronger somehow? That doesn't last forever because Terrell Davis and Jamal Anderson had to retire immediately from that. And it got me thinking about Klay and his thumb. Sometime an injury and rehabilitation can help you to adopt different skills because you just have to. When you think of, if your hand isn't moving, you have to maybe tweak the wrist a little bit or get the elbow somewhere else. And then from a musical standpoint, there was a person who lost their left or their right arm in the war, and Maurice Ravel wrote a whole left-handed concerto. It's the grisliest thing on the face of the earth because your left hand obviously has 5 fingers. Your thumb has to basically be your right hand. Your middle fingers have to be your treble, and your pinky is the bass. So if you get a chance, watch Maurice Ravel's concerto for the left hand. So there's a point to this that I think Klay, I noticed in a couple of his games, his passing improved, his presence improved. And sometimes when we have a ding or something that's ailing us, if we can work through it, it can improve our game. And everyone always thinks of injury as a terrible thing because it is. But if you can rehab through it, it's a lot better. Even think about Tiger Woods. Granted, he's not going to win a green jacket, but now that he doesn't have back pain, he definitely at least looks like a golfer. So, and he's talked about how his game has changed. He's using his irons and some of his lines a little bit differently. So with Klay specifically, with his hand being hurt, I saw him just making some different types of maneuvers than I'd seen him before. Maybe it was just because he was hurt. But.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I had mentioned that in one of my videos, saying that this has been the out of all the Warriors' injuries, this was the most beneficial was Klay's. Now it's remained to be seen how Steph comes back. But one, I think that it gave him fresh legs because Klay's an Iron Man. Klay's kind of a robot. He's notorious for. I had read something from the trainers one time. Klay refuses treatment. So after games, there's certain guys, Iguodala, some of the older guys, they always want a massage. They need that. They want this. Klay just like dresses down and leaves, and they'll be like, Klay, you took a bad fall. Like Klay, and he's just like, I'm going to play Call of Duty. Klay being Klay. And so I think that it rejuvenated his legs. But then you're also right because, and I've noticed it even in myself when I'm just training and playing basketball, when you have an injury, it forces you to go back to the fundamentals. So you may not be able to move how you normally move. So you have to slow down and just focus on my elbow being tucked, balls on the fingertips, and just the basics. And so then you see a guy come back and they're smoother.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself. My knee doesn't hurt. I'm about to go play flag football here at 3:30, and this is the first day where my knee doesn't hurt. If you get a chance, find that power plate machine. It's great. Because I used to be whack, like, I'll never mess with machines. I'm just going to squat 500 pounds over and over and over. Machines are whack. Not true. There's this thing called the power plate. And what you do is it vibrates your muscles at a certain frequency, and it basically engages all of the fast twitch muscles. And my knee has been hurting me for like, I never had knee problems, but my knee's been hurting me for like 6 months, bro. I'll drive and it's hella stiff. I got on this machine for like 3 days and sat there for 5-minute sessions, letting it shock the hell out of my legs and my body. And my knee feels great. So anybody who's out there, check out the power plate. They have it over at Lifetime Fitness where I work out at. And it's a great machine. It basically just gyrates your body and gets the fast twitch muscles to enact. And I swear my knee feels better than it has in a long ass time.
Nice. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. So
it's kind of crazy. So now I'm gonna go out there giving these cats the business, because I was having to run routes real slow and think about when I'm gonna cut. But now that my knee doesn't hurt, it's over.
Yeah, and that's what's up, man. That's what's up. All right, man. We'll try to keep this under an hour. So what is this, episode 11? And, I think we got a lot of good basketball stuff in here. I know I got to go get to my daughter's basketball game. I'm going to go get my LeVar on. And, I try not to embarrass her. You sound like you're going to go ball on some cats, snarl at them. But I hope y'all enjoyed episode 11. We're out.
I wanted to get into Drake. He grabs the back of the head of Doris.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I was like, dude, even in intimate situations, if someone's doming you up, some chicks aren't even with you grabbing the back of their head.
And then
I think it's it was too much. And he's telling like
she said he made her very happy for a few weeks last summer. A very happy lady. I was like, oh Lord.
Did he get with this old ass lady?
Yeah, he's busting her open, man. She probably has some. I could see her just having this like big sloppy booty that like just moves way too much. Like it just moves way too much. Like you can see her butthole without spreading her cheeks. Like.
Drake really likes that. He probably engages in some fisting.
He's like getting some
weird.
ad libs, and then he's like, it's Drizzy 40. OVO, open that OVO, that big old OVO owl up in that bitch. Like,